my god. What do we have here? Which idiot made this setup? A stack of books? What are these? A script? Guys, I think this is looking like a podcast. Well, now that we're here, I guess. Welcome to the Life in Progress podcast, pilot episode 0. Hello everyone. You guys must all be returning from the welcome sequence, if there is one. Otherwise, we might have just jump cutted to this moment. By we, this is a solo project, so yeah, me in the future might just have jump cutted to me here. Welcome to the Life in Progress podcast. We're in the pilot episode. There's a lot of testing happening. It's a very janky setup. There's things everywhere. As you can see, I made myself a few notes here that I'll be referring to because I'm not the best. I am quite a good yapper, but when it comes to it, speaking for a long period of time, I'm not sure if it's best if I just start rambling because things might not make sense after a certain period of time. As you can see, my little makeshift book setup, or if you're just listening, the audio version of this, there is a stack of books in front of me underneath a very expensive mic that I bought for this project. Man, I love this mic. You know what's the best part about this mic? This is something I'm not even going to use during this podcast, or I sort of did at the beginning. It's got such good surround sound. Like if I lean on either side, you hear me on any sort of side. It's so cool. I haven't really shopped for mics in ages. I had my Razer Siren Mini for a really long time, and yeah, no, this is definitely one of the highlights of the setup. Otherwise, right in front of me, we've got my Surface Pro that I use for uni. That is being sort of balanced by two books in a very interesting lever system with this mic connected to that laptop. Yeah, so now you know how janky the setup is. I hope the expectations are below the floor as they should be. Yeah, so I've done so many takes of this beginning part. I don't know whether I've said this or not, so we're gonna give it our best shot. So I think this will be our final take from beginning to end. I might put a few pauses just to break in between. But yeah, welcome. Part of the point of the podcast. So I think about half a year ago, it started to really set into me, or even a year ago, how blessed I am to have such really cool people in my life. I sort of just wanted to have an outlet such that I can appreciate sort of the way that I express myself, and also the way that the people around me express themselves to me and around me. I think I'm really fortunate, as you would see in the future episodes, to have these positive relationships, and I really want some sort of platform that we sort of come together, and we just sort of make a memory out of this. Yeah, so this is sort of just a very personal hobby of mine. I have splooshed quite a lot of money into this project, but it's just simply because I believe in the project so much. Yeah, so in terms of how this podcast would sort of look like in a more practical manner, in the first few episodes, or for quite a bit of time, I will be bringing on a lot of guests. So a lot of my friends. It will mainly start with friends, and then it can branch out with other people as well if I so envision it to be. Maybe some teachers and professors that I really admire can sort of come on and just speak with me. That would be pretty cool. But there's just a lot of avenues to work down. But initially, we're gonna have some friends on. I'm gonna try to plan out this podcast to have questions and prompts specific to them or specific to the way that I sort of relate to them. Um, so yeah, there will be a lot of random questions here and there, but there are going to be two consistent questions. You will hear these questions in the course of this podcast and every podcast from now on. And I think it'll be a really good sort of landmark to see how people answer these questions, because they're quite nice questions that you can go really deep into, or you can sort of look at the baseline. And it also can show like how people's answers change over time. There was going to be a lot of recurring episodes with specific groups. When I'm going to start grouping people together, you will see familiar faces, which will be super nice. Yeah, so as I said, initially it's going to be one person, and then we're going to branch out to however many people we sort of get to. The good thing about this is, as you can finish, we finished the first page of our little notes here. The big thing here now is that, okay, I've lost my momentum. This is great. We're going to jump cut. I'm going to just refresh, and we're going to start this next bit in 1 second. Yeah, so everyone, you were just blessed with another jump cut because my brain froze again. This is great. We're learning quite a bit from this pilot episode. I think what I'm sort of learning as I go is how much I need to plan for in terms of points for future. But yeah, I will be going to, so in terms of getting back on interesting conversation, I will be going to Brisbane soon. That will be in about 2 weeks' time. I want to be smashing out a bunch of these podcasts with a bunch of people in between that time. And yeah, I've got friends going and coming in, so we're going to have to try organize that, which is going to be pretty fun. Yeah, I bought this mic as well, which was one of the biggest highlights of this past week. And I don't want to spoil too much of things because I feel like I will talk about these things with some friends, but yeah, so I've been gaming as well with my holidays, been hopping back on the League and TFT. There's a new update for TFT, which has been amazing, that I've been getting into. It's just so much fun finding like a new way to play the game and having to sort of restart after every sort of update. There's something fun about not knowing anything again and trying to learn your way up, which is also fun. But yeah, so after this sort of stage, there's also another segment. In this segment, I'm gonna bring in a piece of media that I've sort of enjoyed. So I've prepared something that I've read recently that I really liked. So I've been reading a book. Funnily enough, it's not in this stack, and I actually have no idea where the book is right now, even though I'm still reading it. But it's one of these books that you read chapter to chapter, and they sort of segregate into their own sort of stories. The book is about a healing hippo, and in this book, they have some really interesting perspectives on anxiety and stuff that I really liked reading. So to give some context to what I'm going to read out here, in this specific chapter, it's about this little kid that has faked breaking his leg, and what he's done is, because he didn't want to go to the athletics carnival, as many of you might relate, in his primary school, he decided that he was going to fake breaking his leg by wrapping bandages and having a limp. So he does this, and then goes to class, and then they see the bandage, and then they also sort of see how he's limping throughout the entire day, and they're like, oh, okay, I guess you can't participate in the race because the race is next week. So they choose this other kid, um, because basically two people had volunteered for this sort of race, and what those you're meant to have three people per group or per, and in our case in our school it would have been like per house. You would have to have three people running the race because it was a relay race, and um yeah, so he dodged out from it, but it ends up that the pain in his leg remained after he limped for a while. Um, so what happened was he started like learning a somewhat valuable lesson about dodging stuff and the method of dodging stuff. I mean, we all have experience of like trying to dodge things. When I was younger, I used to despise my swimming lessons. I would make up the classic stomach aches. I would just say that I didn't want to go. Um, so I related to this kid quite a lot. And this kid goes to a doctor, or I think it's either a psychologist or a doctor. I think they initially go to a doctor and he gets referred to a psychologist. And the psychologist, the kid's sort of stressing out on this idea that he's limping and he faked an injury and now he's actually injured and like his like leg actually hurts. So the doctor teaches him some like movement exercises and then tells him that he's got two tasks. The first one is to practice those exercises that he's shown. And then the second one is sort of like where this quote sort of starts, or like this little part of the book starts. He said, the second task is to practice shifting your awareness away from your leg. The kid was, now I'm paraphrasing, the kid was confused after like this sentence. And then the doctor continues, if you focus too much on the pain or thinking that your pain in your leg might not heal, your mind might send the wrong signal. Sometimes it's important to redirect your anxious feelings rather than confront them head on. And then the kid sort of thinks, was that even possible? I looked down at my feet. I couldn't stop thinking about my worries, even though I didn't want to. And then the doctor says, it would be helpful if you could focus on something you find enjoyable. If that's tricky, try focusing on some simple tasks. Yeah, so I think like the image of this was pretty powerful. And this kid then goes on to really practice on like sort of appreciating the small things in his life, the small sort of tasks that he does. In fact, he becomes really good friends with the person that got chosen instead of him as the third racer in the relay race. That character is also amazing. He's a very jolly individual. I related to this character in a different way as well. And he just had this way of going about life. This other character that got selected had this way about going about life where it was sort of like he got selected and he was sort of like, okay, we sort of don't really have a choice now, so we might as well enjoy it. So he starts training. He's trotting along happy, like goes on his jogs in the morning, like he's just having a good time with it. And over time, this kid realizes that he's sort of like trapped this guy into this sort of spot and sort of just becomes his strongest cheerleader as the story goes on. He starts running with him, he starts training with him, and he learns a lot about like outlooks on life and how much perspective can really change how you see the world and how you go about performing in the world. After all of this, he goes back to the doctor, or the physiologist. I don't know either one. And this comes to the second part of the quote, where where the doctor sort of tells him that like he's done a good job, and the kid asks him, then am I back to normal? And then the doctor says, not exactly. The human body after it heals doesn't necessarily return to the condition before it was injured. The memory and experience of having been ill or injured are imprinted on the body, the heart, and the mind. So after you recover, you're a different person than you were before. And then the kid that dodged the race says, By different, am I a better person or worse person than I was before? And then the doctor replies with, I think, one of the most sort of powerful sort of things in this chapter. He said, "That's not for me to decide. I do this work hoping that it helps people in a more positive direction. At the very least, you've begun to understand things that you didn't know before your legs started to hurt. I hope your understanding helps you move forward in a positive way." Um, I don't know, just the way that this sort of chapter was like constructed. I think it just really sort of hit something in me where it sort of combined a lot of really big themes together that I just really liked. There was a thing about how sometimes when it comes to managing anxiety and managing your stresses, sometimes it's really about slowing down and redirecting your attention. Focusing too hard on the pain can make it worse. And I know this through physical and both emotional sort of pain. Like when I'm going on a run, that sort of physical pain, as well as when I'm sort of like going through a lot of stresses in life. I know that this sort of method works really well. Then afterwards, how he sort of said about pain sort of leaving an imprint on you as time goes on, that sort of really resonated with me too. Um, and about how you're not necessarily back to normal when things happen to you. Um, it's sort of like you sort of have a memory, and the memory won't go away, of pain happening to you, but you sort of grow from it, and you sort of use that as a nice platform to sort of like launch yourself forward. And I sort of really like those themes, man. Like it sort of just helps, like reading this sort of stuff and reading these types of books sort of like help me push forward and navigate through life. So yeah, those were the little piece of media that I really enjoyed, and I really hope you enjoyed me talking about them. So that is the segment to do with reading or retelling something that I've read or seen that I really enjoy. And I'm gonna also make this one of the consistent things that happen each episode. Um, but yeah, the final question of the podcast that goes out to everyone is sort of I'm gonna be asking about like what sort of stresses that they have in their life currently, and then asking about what actually this should be. You can tell this is a pilot episode now because I'm still brainstorming it. I'm gonna probably put this question at the beginning, the stressors, at the beginning. So then after we have a general conversation and talk about whatever, then talk about the media and stuff that we read, or like a powerful quote that we've looked at, then we can sort of jump to a more positive ending than this. Anyways, you know what? Today we're going with the sad ending. Get excited, people, because sad ending today. We're going with the stresses question at the end. So the second consistent question. So the first one was, what are the luxuries in your life? This second one is, what are the stresses in your life? This would have been a better introduction question, but here we are. So what are the stresses in your life? Currently, for me, it's just the looming idea that university will start again soon and getting this sort of podcast off the ground. I do have an exam coming up in March that's going to be quite big. So that's why the university thing sort of stresses me out a bit. And this podcast, it's sort of like a stress, but like I just really want this to get off the ground because I know once it's off the ground, it's going to do amazing. And that's sort of the feedback that I've gotten. But yeah, like that's really the big stresses. And you know what? The more that I go on this question, the more that it sort of makes sense in my head that this should be a beginning question rather than an end question. But yeah, as you can tell with this podcast, a lot of this stuff is going to be in unedited sort of like length of speech that you're going to hear. I sort of plan to keep it that way. There might be a few jump cuts, as you've heard, of me just like losing my train of thought and then sort of like jumping in back in. I just literally pressed pause on the recording, started again, and then sort of with my new mindset sort of jump into it. But yeah, this should be a really fun project, and hopefully it's gonna be really fun to listen to. Um, this episode also is gonna be a lot shorter, I think, than our normal episodes. Um, so yeah, we're probably gonna end it here at about the 20 to 30 minute mark. I presume we are. Otherwise, I may have completely misjudged on how little or how much I've talked. I do have a little stopwatch in the background, but I think I've paused and started it a few too many times to know like where I'm at. But yeah, anyways, thank you for joining me for the pilot podcast. This was a bit of a test of all the tech working, all the cameras and stuff. It seems that everything is going well. Um, and yeah, well, thank you for joining, and we will see you for the next episode and the actual first episode of Life in Progress. All right. Bye bye, everyone.